have lived daily and nightly with the cost of this war. I know the pain that it has inflicted. I know perhaps better than anyone the misgivings that it has aroused. And throughout this entire long period, I have been sustained by a single principle, that what we are doing now in Vietnam is vital not only to the security of Southeast Asia, but it is vital to the security of every American.
I was born in Los Angeles, California. My brother and I, a single mom, she worked hard to support my brother and I. When she finally remarried, we moved out into a nice house. We lived close to Dodger Stadium, so we used to go to Dodger games too, so that was cool. Well, my brother was 2 years ahead of me, and even though 2 years ahead of me, we played baseball and football together. He went on to college, and I was on my way to college, and then something like Vietnam came along. So my brother went into the Army. I got a draft notice, and there's no way I wanted to go into the Army or Marines. But I had a draft notice, so I'm walking down Sunset Boulevard. There's this Air Force recruiter, and my girlfriend at the time, who became my wife later, said, let's go in and see what he can do. And he greets me, really nice guy, greets me, and says, you want to join the Air Force? I said, no, because I already have a draft notice. The first thing he says, do you want to go in the Army? I go, oh no, I don't go no Army. You tell me how I can get into the Air Force. He says, you can go in as an aircraft mechanic. I said, an aircraft mechanic? I said, I really don't know anything about mechanics. I said, the only thing I did was I had a hammer, and I would get a roll of caps and pop them. Okay, that was my mechanical knowledge. He says, okay, go downtown LA and take your test on Wednesday. Come back and see me on Friday. I go downtown LA on Wednesday, take the test. I come see him on Friday. Dan, you did great. We can get you into the Air Force. Oh, okay. So now what do we do? He says, pack your bags. You're leaving on Friday. I said, wait a minute. I was here Monday, and now I got to leave on Friday. I said, but I got things to do. I got to play baseball in college and stuff like that. My baseball career. Do you want to go in the Army? So pack my bags, and here I am flying to Amarillo Air Force Base, where a lot of people went to Lackland. I went to Amarillo, did my basic training, then went to tech school at Shepherd Air Force Base, and then my first duty was right there in California, George Air Force Base, California. So I was a crew chief, F4 crew chief at George Air Force Base. And then I get orders for Southeast Asia, which they sent me to Thailand, and I was a crew chief there, watching these F4s loaded with bombs, loaded with missiles, leaving and coming back empty. Where did all that go? And we're not talking about just one airplane taking off, two. Sometimes it'd be what you call a max effort. There'd be 15 to 20 F4s taking off at one time. Boom, everything's gone. They come back. What happened? F4 was a tough airplane, okay? A few came back with wings blowing off, one wing, fuselage. They were tough. They're like Sherman tanks, okay? The F4 was a tough airplane. Some did not come back, okay? That's what made it really hard. That's what made it hard. But the whole time I spent there, I grew up. I really, that's what you do. You grow up when you're there. So once I left there, I got orders for England. Mm-hmm. I get home to Los Angeles. I'm only there for maybe, 20 days, and then I'm off to Europe. During that time, I played football for the Air Force. We traveled all through Germany, we traveled to Spain, we traveled to Italy. I applied to become a flight engineer, and I was accepted. So they sent me to Shepherd Air Force Base again for ground school, I guess. But you have to be a mechanic to be a flight engineer, so that's why you qualify for it. Once I went there, I went to Altus, Oklahoma for flight school. Now, flight school to me was, I almost quit 3 times. It was, if you know what seasick is, airsick is, my first flight, I turned green. I mean, it was purple green. I said, this is not for me. Then I go on another flight, same thing. Oh, I was sick. I said, boy, this flying's not for me. One of my buddies said, Dan, take some saltine crackers before you go. I go, what? He goes, yeah, saltine crackers. It absorbs the acids in your stomach. Third flight was great. So I became a flight engineer, and I was stationed out of Travis Air Force Base, California. And guess what? Trip to Vietnam. I was flying a C-141s, 4 jet engines, 163 feet long and 160 feet wingspan. Pilot, co-pilot, navigator, and an engineer. I was the engineer. My responsibility was really the safety of the airplane. My panel, we had to monitor the fuel, the hydraulics, the landing gear, everything. Anything goes wrong, we have to work with the pilot to correct it. That was my job. It was stressful. It was stressful because you really couldn't get off the panel. Your eyes are on that panel the whole flight. April to May of 1975. Operation Home Safe, we went there and loaded the plane with refugees. Just filled that back in with refugees, take them into Guam and sometimes to Okinawa. The configuration of the C-141, you could do anything. You could put jeeps, tanks, troops. The evacuation. As soon as I saw that on TV, it just flashed back. I'm bringing these refugees, out of Vietnam. Taking troops and dropping off in Vietnam was my job. The sad part about it, I had to bring a lot of them back in coffins. We had to bring them back. And that was the sad part. When I got out of the Air Force, I still played baseball. I played baseball till I was 60-something years old. Then I got into CrossFit at 65. I went to these CrossFit competitions and saw 2 of my sons compete. And I said, you know what? You could do that. And guess what? You can't do it. So I worked at it, and just stayed in shape. Eating well, staying in shape. I started competing, and at 74, I became number 1 in the world in that age group. The honor flight to me was very, very special. I really did not want to go on the honor flight for years because I respected the Army, the Marines, these guys were on the ground. It's not for me. But some of my friends convinced me, Dan, we all had a job, okay? So I went on this honor flight. I'll tell you, the best decision I've made in years. Just being with our fellow brothers and sisters, that's a highlight. I went to Arlington and visited one of my friends, okay, who was shot down in 1967 over Laos. There I am at his tombstone, and then the tombstone right next to it also had his name on it, but it was a larger tombstone, and it had his whole crew that was shot down in Laos. I said, well, that was really, really special. And then the wall. 4 of my high school friends. Now, I graduated from a Catholic high school. My graduating class was 100. 4 are on the wall. 3 were on my baseball team. That was really, really special, especially some we grew up together also, not just high school, but we grew up together. A good friend of mine I graduated from high school with, who's a Purple Heart Vietnam veteran, his dad is still MIA in Korea. And I found his name, put my finger and showed it, and texted back to my friend, and he was just absolutely excited. He's still waiting for his dad to come home, because that group from Hawaii are still out there looking for World War I, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War. However, they look for remains. My son went with me, and he was so amazed at everything. He could take this information home to my grandsons and let them know what this is all about. With my son there, it was absolutely, really a special thing. The mail call was probably the tearjerker. Don't know that they sent all these notices to all your friends, relatives, or whatever to write a letter. And then you get this package with these letters in it, I get them from my grandkids, from my friends. It just, I mean, that is a tearjerker. I cried, I had tears. That mail call is really, really something special. The homecoming to Bakersfield, it is so awesome. It's something you don't expect. It makes you feel so important. It's the people that go out there to cheer you home. Young kids to, aged people. And no matter what age, they're there. They're there to cheer you on. There is so much support for the military. I didn't see that really until I went on this honor flight. Yeah, it was so awesome. And now you could just see every day in my life now that the military is being supported. You're never going to feel good about war, but war will continue forever. And war has always been there. It's, most of our dads out there were in the World War II, Korean War. So in war, right now we're at war. I'm very proud of being a veteran, very proud.